Taking the walk of shame. I could have swore that thing said it had half a tank in it, but it's like impossible to see through that little plastic eye slit viewing window, whatever. Gotta fix this. Okay. I don't know if you can see that or not. Can you see the fuel sloshing around in there? So inside, in this, inside the garage with the door closed, you can look at that and you can see it. Once you get outside, it is invisible. There's no way you can tell how much fuel you've got. I thought about maybe adding a light like this to shine down in there, but I did this outside and you still couldn't see. I've run out of gas twice because I'll look and I'll think I'll see that line, but the other problem is outside, the surface of the fuel reflects, like you get a reflection, so you'll actually see a line like right here bouncing around, but that's actually the sunlight reflecting off the gas way down there, and then whatever. It's just extremely frustrating. So I hate those stupid kinds of fuel gauges. So I'm going to add a fuel gauge. Okay, I went on Amazon and just started looking at fuel gauges, fuel sending units, and then I went down the rabbit hole. I found a bunch of stuff for boats, and so they make some fuel gauges for boats that I could retrofit. And then I went and looked at, there's a video, Max's Garage Mahal. He kind of did almost exactly what I want to do, and it seems like the one for boats is the best bet because they have these kits. It's meant to retrofit a fuel gauge into something that didn't have one. So my plan is to drill a hole somewhere in this. This is the deepest part of the tank. This tank is shaped very strangely. But right here, where the pickup is the deepest part. So I'm going to put a sending unit in here, and it's a vertical sending unit, which is a float that goes up and down. It's not the lever arm kind. It's just, it's just a post with a float. So I'll put the sending unit here, then I'll put the gauge on one of the two armrests. So the first step is to see, since these are universal, you just tell them how deep the tank is, or how deep do you want the sending unit to go down. So I'm going to fold it down, and I'm going to see where this edge is, right here. All right. Y'all probably can't see that mark, but okay, now we got that line. Can do one roughly on the center of this. So right there. Man, it looks like it is like 6 1/4. So if we do a 6-inch sender, it's going to be right on the bottom. If we do a 5-inch, it'll be, basically an inch off the bottom of the tank. So let me go look at it and think about this for a second. If you can see why this tank is shaped down there. So basically, from here to here, and from here to here, there's like this little, you can kind of see it, I think. There's like about this much, this area right here. And that's a little about an inch. So I think what I'm gonna do is get the 5-inch And so when the 5-inch reads empty, it'll mean I'm pretty much down to this little area right here. And I don't know how close to the bottom of the tank that pickup is. So yeah, I think I'm gonna do the 5. I wish they had a 5.5. That would be perfect, but I'd rather err on the side of caution. So well, let me go order the 5-inch sender and come back in a couple days. All right, it's supposed to be a 240 to 33, I believe. Is that what it says? Yeah, 240 to 33. And I counted 8 jumps, so basically there's 8 different positions. So there's this position, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 8 spaces. So if you count, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 lines, 8 gaps. So this thing will read in basically quarter tank on this gauge. It's going to go from E to an eighth, then a quarter, then 3/8, then a half, 5/8, 3/4, 7/8, full. So the gauge won't stop in between here. It's going to just go from one line to each one. But that's for what I got in this, $70, $80. That's perfectly fine. So little Walgreens lid. It's pretty much the same thickness as this. So I want to stick it here where I think I'm gonna put it and make sure that when I put the seat down, it clears. So I just want to see if that thing moves at all. Yeah, that's fine. If you look right here, hopefully you can see a little arrow. That's where the wires come out. So this is for boats and whatever. This is like some established pattern. These are not some metrical, so you can't just put it and rotate it. It won't line up. It only lines up. These holes are not evenly spaced, is what I'm saying. So whichever way that arrow points is where the wires will be exiting that sending unit. Put that there. So that's what I'm doing. Wow. You know, I was going to run these up from underneath, but man, I cannot pull that out. That is actually way better than I thought it would be. I mean, I pulled as hard as I could. Yeah, maybe we'll go that way. And if this doesn't work, I can always redo this. So my initial plan, because it's, their instructions say, do this. And I'm like, whatever, these are machine screws and you're screwing into freaking plastic. There's no way it's going to be strong enough. So my plan was to I was going to drill this hole and then reach in and push these up from underneath and hold them up with epoxy. So then I would have, basically like that sticking up, and I'd put the thing on there and put nuts on it. But this really seems like it'll hold. Okay. Yeah, look how thick that is. Holy crap. I can use that as the pattern instead of those marks I made, just to make sure. And if you're worried about the plastic, as long as you don't reverse the drill bit is actually pulling the stuff up and out. Okay. I'm not worried about it leaking at that rubber gasket, but what it could happen is fuel can wick up these threads. So I think what I'm going to put is some PC7 epoxy on here when I screw them in, and that'll hopefully seal it. So let me go make up some epoxy, and then we'll come back. PC7 here, PC11 I mean. I don't know why I call it PC7. Stuff's like JB Weld, but I just think it's better. It's just an epoxy. All right. there's 4 bolts, 3 10s and a 13. And this just comes off. Okay, I've been looking at it, and this makes the most sense right here. So and we're just an oil dam. Oh man. Okay. Is that hot? Yep. I'll probably have to get a Dremel and clean this out because this is 51 millimeters, which is basically 2 inches. I'll tell you what, they did not skimp on. Look at that, it looks like 3/8. Jeez. There we go. Now there's a connection right here. It's black and purple. And it's for this switch, but I don't know what that switch is for. So we got nothing. I bet you're gonna have 12. Yeah. If we ever hook up lights, which I won't, but if you ever do, that's where they would go. And I think, or maybe that you can get a, I'll look up and I'll put it on here what this is for. I'm pretty sure that's for a light kit, but maybe it's a USB thing, but I don't need that. I just don't need it. So we do have this factory connection here that's hot that we'll use for the gauge. So let me get out the instructions for the gauge and figure out what the wiring is. Everything hooked up right. I've got, yeah, you just have to trust me. But I have the power for this gauge and the backlight wired together. They give you 2 wires, but that would be if you had actually headlights or something, then you could have power all the time, but then you could have the lights routed into your headlight circuit, so the backlight would only come on when you turn your lights on. But I'll just have the backlight on all the time, but let's see what happens here. All right, it should be reading empty because it is about empty. Okay, so the red is the power for the gauge and the orange is the backlight, so we're going to wire those together. Okay, and the last thing we have to do is the signal wire, which would be these two. These two need to go together. Okay. It has a rubber seal back here. And that button's if you want to change the light colors. That's good. About right there. I don't really think this is necessary since this has already got a pretty heavy rubber protection on it, but why not? Yeah, I've got the stuff, so. Okay, overall, this was a great addition. It comes in handy, it works great, and it wasn't that expensive. If you have questions about if you have the light kit or the USB installed, this will still work. You can actually install the light kit, the USB, and this, the way I did it, using those existing harnesses, because if you use the Gravely kit, the USB add-on and the light add-on, basically after you install it, you still have an empty pigtail to use. So you don't lose that connection. They provide you with another one. So that's nothing to worry about if you're concerned about that, but the wiring is real simple. If you have any questions, let me know. Hope this helps. And now, if you want to keep watching, I'm going to do a really quick run through the entire process for people that don't have the patience to sit through a 20-30 minute video. So now we're going to do that. Okay, this is a quick rundown on how to install this gauge on the Gravely ProTurn ZX, ProTurn Z, ZTHD, or the Ariens Apex or the Ariens Zenith. So the tools you're going to need: one, you're going to need a 2-inch hole saw or 52 millimeter, something like this, not one of these. I don't think this will go. I tried to go through this with this. Didn't work. Now you will need one of these, or if you have the whole set of these, you can obviously use these. You have to do a 1 1/4 inch hole in here for the sending unit. But to get through this steel, this is thick, and I don't think you're going to do it with this. So I used one of these. Obviously you'll need a drill and a screwdriver and some drill bits. You want to start off real small and certainly work your way up to see what size for the bolt here. You'll need some wiring connectors. I would recommend using some loom like this if you want to look all professional. Heat shrink, that kind, basic wiring stuff. I used some of this PC11. This is a 2-part epoxy. You don't have to use that. You could use probably the orange gasket maker or nothing. But when I installed this sending unit, I put a little bit of epoxy around these threads, down in there and in the threads, just so there's a rubber gasket under here, but fuel could seep up around the threads and you could actually get a leak right here. I will tell you, this thing is rock solid with that rubber gasket and this epoxy that I use on the threads. I mean, I think that's the way to go. Measurements. So when you want to drill the hole for this sending unit, if you fold the seat up 2 1/4 inches from this edge to the center of this thing, and 1 3/4 from the edge to here. And you've got room to move it around, but that's where mine is, and it works fine. This sending unit is a 5.5 inch. I will put the picture of it on the screen, the one I ordered. If you can't find this one, I would go 5 inch, don't go 6, because a 6 inch will basically be touching the bottom. And the issue is these are float sensors, so the float comes up and down, and there's a good chance that you will run out of gas before the gauge reads empty. So there could be the possibility that if you get the 6 inch sender, it's going to be almost touching the bottom of the tank. You could have it where this is sucking air before this is showing empty. But make sure you get high resolution. And what that means is for this one, the 5.5 inch, this shows 9 different readings. And if you look, the gauge has 9 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 8 gaps, but 9 spots. So this only puts out 9 different signals. Empty, 8, quarter, and so on, all the way around. If you get a low resolution one, a lot of those only have 5. So you would go from empty, all the way to a quarter, all the way to a half, all the way to 3/4, and then all the way to full. The gauge is the gauge is from the same people as this. I bought them together. It's the same company, AOD Tech or whatever. But you want to make sure you buy the gauge and the sending unit from the same people. I would take your hole saw and stick it on here, and just after you get the hole drilled in the center, and kind of scrape it around and see if you can take a razor knife or something and trim this, because there is a protective, like a thick vinyl coating on here. So I'd go through and you could just make it a neat circle. The other thing is when you're drilling this out, the center one, you just use some air while you're drilling. It'll blow the little plastic chunks away. And then when you drill these out, as long as you have your drill going, drilling and hold it, it's going to pull the plastic out. But the other piece of caution is when you're doing these, start off with a tiny hole and get it to where you can just get these to screw in. These tanks are thick. They're about that thick. So there's actually plenty of room for those threads to engage, but you don't want to oversize these, because if you do that, then you're figuring something else out. You're gonna have to buy thicker screws or bolts or something. I'll put the wiring diagram up here that I used, but I used the existing wiring. There's a provision in here. There's 2 leads that aren't used. They are for either a light kit or USB or both. You can actually install both. But if you have the light kit, you can power this light separately, so this light would only come on when you turn your headlights on. I'll put the image of that wiring up there. And so from the factory, there's 2 unused connectors underneath here, which if you watch the whole video, you'll see. One's purple, one's black. Purple's hot, 12 volt keyed. So keyed on, keyed off, there's no power. Keyed on, it's hot, 12 volt. The other one is ground. All right, well, I hope this video helped you. If you got any questions, let me know. See ya.